Welcome back to this week's episode. I'm really excited to share with you one of my dear friends. Her name is Cheri Honeycutt. Beyond being an amazing human, she's also a coach who helps entrepreneurial women and men design their life and business on purpose. So you couldn't be in a better place on
I
this
know.
podcast talking about
Mhm.
purpose, presence, and prosperity. Welcome,
Yeah.
Cheri. Tell us who you be and how you got to be doing what you're doing in the
Who
world.
I be and how I got to be here. Well, first of all, thank you so much for creating a place for me to come and for us to collaborate today. I'm excited to see what comes up when we
Me
when we
too.
just have a conversation. So, the quick story is I've been a coach for over 20 years, which is a long time. Started doing training and consulting, and then really discovered coaching for myself, and then decided that is a cool industry, and who doesn't need a coach on the sideline cheering them on, helping you with the strokes, that you're just like golf, helping you improve your stroke in your life. And so I've been doing that for lots of folks, life coaching in general, but specifically for entrepreneurial folks. I find those are the folks who are my favorites,
Yeah.
meaning it's juicy. And those who trek out on their own to do their own business, it's really it's still life coaching, but it's
Yeah.
just in the context of business, because right, it's the same stuff.
Absolutely. I was just in my Facebook group this morning. We do a Monday mastery and we were talking about leadership and aspects of
Hmm.
leadership, and nothing will spark up that desire to really get to know yourself, like meeting yourself on the entrepreneurial journey. Like it just tends to bring
Absolutely.
everything to the surface.
Yeah,
You're
good, bad,
right.
and the ugly, right? All
Right?
of it.
All to lead you to exactly what we're talking about, that bigger
Hmm.
purposeful expression. And so
Hmm.
I love that journey for you. Do you find more freedom in how you're expressing now from the journey that you've been through, from how you've learned who
Oh,
that sweet spot of person is that you want to help?
I really have. I would be lying if I told you it was linear. It's been a jumbled up, hot mess of a journey, but I don't think I'm unique. I think that's what it is. It's up, down, forward, backward, all around, you know, reiterating constantly who I am. I think that's the entrepreneurial journey. Who I was 20 years ago, and my website and what I was doing then has a, a common thread of who I am now, but it's also worlds apart because I'm a different human. I'm 60 years old now. I've been around the sun a lot more times. What has come easier with time is I've learned I don't sweat the small stuff as much. I was just with a client this morning. She's brand new to business, and there was a particular place where she had, quote, spent money on something that she wasn't going to be able to really use. And I said, "Welcome to entrepreneurship." I said, "I don't know if that helps you at all, but I have a long column of things I've done like that."
Yeah. And ugh, so many places to go.
Sorry, I was talking so much just then.
No, I love it because it's all of it's yes, right? And I love that you're gonna be 60, I'm gonna be 56, so we
Mhm.
share that, right? And I don't know that I regret any purchase,
Mhm.
but I'm gonna tell why. And my coach said this early on, as long as you get one thing that you learn about yourself through that experience, and maybe let go of one piece of judgment along the way,
Mhm. Money
there's
well spent.
yeah, like, what
Money well
wouldn't you
spent.
spend to learn that about yourself? And so, I love that conversation, but I wanna take it in terms of this place that we experience of ourselves, this mess, so to speak. I
Mhm.
feel like the mess is necessary, but the judgment isn't, and the
Right.
acceptance journey that we go through in that really
Mhm.
brings ease in a way that it wouldn't have 20 years ago for me.
Oh, me
And
neither.
even
You're right.
And even, like, the date and time, like, I think
Mhm.
that the world is opening to a little bit more acceptance of what's going on in our heads and how it connects to our body, but we're just now really scratching the surface of
Mhm.
what this beautiful technology of ours is meant to do and what the journey is like when we first discover we're not who we thought we were.
I know. And you know what? We can't know what we don't know. But
Mm,
I remember back when I was starting out on this journey, and I'll tell just a tiny bit of my story, only because it's the part that often my clients will come back and go, "This is why I hired you." My life was a shit show, if I can say cuss words on your
you
podcast.
because I
Okay,
clicked
thank you.
it. I'm
Uh,
Italian. I know
okay,
myself.
good. You know how to do that. But single, not by choice. Husband left me, 2 kids that were special needs, hard as hell. Trying to be a motivational speaker, feeling like I was duplicitous as can be, telling people to live this amazing life, and really all I wanted to do was eat Oreos and take a nap, and cry every day, and just sort of life was lifey and messy, and I didn't know back then some of the skills I've got now, which is to, don't sweat the small stuff, learning how to accept myself, understanding their highs and lows, and understanding how to emotionally regulate my own nervous system. These are things I just didn't know. So no judgment of myself back then, but I'll tell you what I did know back then, which is part of my biggest work now, is that back then, even when it was the snotty tears and the disappointment or bumping into the wall, not getting the gig, struggling over money, there was this part of me that knew that I needed to do the inner work, that this was an inside game.
Mhm.
And I kind of came up with this term of just roll your eyes and do it anyway. Go make the vision board. Just go read the self-help book, Cheri. Go put a crystal in your bra, whatever you have to do. Roll your eyes and do it anyway. And it paid off.
Oh my God. I'm
Yeah.
loving that so much because I'm like just reminding myself everything I've ever resisted or had some kind of like, oh, that's not me. Like when I really let myself, I had the most fun. I met the most amazing
Absolutely.
people, right? We
Yeah.
embraced it, had a good time, and I learned over trial and error over and over again until we get the pattern, right?
All right.
Oh, when I feel the
Oh,
resistance, that's like, let's go through it.
that's the thing to go do. Absolutely. And again, just love on our tender selves that didn't know that, and any of you folks who are listening to this but maybe from a place of age or just wisdom, that resistance is the breadcrumb.
It is.
It's the breadcrumb to come to move, lean in.
Yeah.
There's to lean into that thing.
I had such an interesting experience this morning. I'm not even sure at this moment what I was looking for. It was like you scroll through your phone, your pictures, which is
Mm-hmm.
really fun to do, by the way, because you're, I don't know about you,
Mm-hmm.
but I've got like 7, 8 years worth of stuff in there.
Right.
I'm, and I came across a photo of me when I first spoke on stage.
Mm-hmm.
In the photo, like I remember looking at that photo and crying before because I was in white pants and like all I could see was the imperfection. Not
Mm.
I stood on stage and had a microphone and was speaking. No, I didn't see that. I just remember the horror.
Oh, girl.
Right. And so I shared, like I haven't posted it yet on Facebook. By the time this airs, though, it'll be up there. And it was this whole like how pretty she was and like
Mm-hmm.
her cotton socks and like she just didn't know, but she faced herself in that moment and my life was never changed, never the same.
Never the same.
That
Yeah.
moment I wanted more. I decided I wanted more experience than what I was having, not judging that everything was bad. I loved being a mom, I loved being in business, but there was a little spark of curiosity that kicked in that
That's something else.
what would
Mm-hmm.
your business look like? What if this could really be a thing? What if
Mm-hmm.
this coaching thing you just found out about, because other than that was strength and conditioning, became
Right.
if somebody wants to work with me after I speak on stage, like what is this world?
Mm-hmm.
What are women empowerment conferences? Like it
I
was,
know. What is this thing? What
I
is this
just felt like I
thing?
just uncovered like the
I
golden
know.
ticket and I was so living my life, right?
Oh, yeah.
The shoulds, need tos, and have tos. And I will use that phrase until I'm blue in the face because it's a deeper level of it every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Start to discover who you are beyond the shoulds, need tos, and have tos of what you told yourself, what you thought you were only
Mm-hmm.
to do. It just becomes so much more expansive. And then,
Right.
halfway into that 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
now my gifts are opening. I'm intuitive. I like, what is this
Mm-hmm.
language? What is this experience? And I really think it's a remembering. It's such a deep
It is.
conversation.
And behind me is my bookshelf, and there's a book back there by Amy Poehler called Yes Please, and that is the mantra of those who are in comedy and doing ad lib, and you just say yes, constantly saying yes to whatever is pitched your way, and there are so many people who just say no. We do it out of fear, do it out of resistance, do it out of all those reasons. What am I going to look like? Can I stand it if I see myself fail? And I, again, send love to all of us who have not chosen to step up. But when we do, most of the time, it's never as bad as we thought. And we still might not do it perfectly, but you've done a thing, whatever the thing is. You bake the bread, you got on stage, you asked the person out, you lifted a weight and
Right.
you did the thing.
What were we talking about before we got on? It was something around like you just didn't know what you could do until you did it.
Right.
That we
Yeah.
sit there, like, are you in the place now where you can observe yourself in that whole process?
Much.
So
Mm-hmm.
you can actually catch when your brain or your mind starts to tell the story and
Yeah.
pre-deciding that it's not for you.
Oh,
You haven't even
yeah.
given yourself 2 minutes to go find out. Or like even something as simple as I'm going to be walking, and you literally think you're walking every single day because your mind's convinced you that you're a walker. But when you
Mm-hmm.
look, you're like, oh, I only went once this
I
week.
only
Well,
went once this week. That was
yeah,
3 days ago.
right.
But I walk.
That's how our mind works. And it's no
Mm-hmm.
fault of its own. It's intended to keep us safe, but that's not all who we are and it's not who we be. Right.
Well,
And
and it's not. And I want to confess here, like there's some things that, you've asked me about business. I've been doing this for so long. There's some things that are so much easier now. But I'll also tell you, there's some things that were hard back then that are still hard today. It
we
just
were
is.
messing with technology right before this, and you and I were like, I don't know,
Yeah.
like let's try this button, right? And it's okay though. Like I don't get mad or upset or stressed
Hmm.
anymore. I just giggle. It's like,
There we go. Yeah, it's hard. And
don't sweat the small stuff,
don't
right?
sweat the small stuff.
Do you think that's what keeps us from having more of what we want? A lot of times, this whole conversation that we're leading into this
I
right now.
do. I do. I think there's a couple of things that keep us from having the life we want. One is uh, we fear disappointment, so we just don't try at all. I think that we are disappointment averse. And so we will choose that phrase, the devil you know. So you might be disappointed now, but what if I'm disappointed more? Because I remember having a friend of mine one time coming to me and he had interviewed for a couple of jobs. And he said, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. I said, that's bullshit. Go get your hopes as high as you can be. He goes, well, I'll be disappointed. I said, so you're telling me you're not going to be disappointed if you don't get the job now? He goes, yeah, I'll be really disappointed. So be really disappointed. Go really want it.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same level of disappointment, you know, except if you really want it, you're going to send that positive energy toward it. You're going to change the trajectory. You're, much more likely to get the job.
Ugh.
But people can't do that very well.
Well, I don't
Um,
think we're taught that we can do it well. I think
No,
we're
cut your
taught stay to the box,
losses.
stay small,
Mm-hmm.
stay safe, stay play it.
Mm-hmm.
Let us show you how it all works, right? And
Absolutely.
I think it's a very powerful conversation. And I think it's why when we start discovering ourselves outside that comfort zone, we're not sure what it's like to be out there. I don't know, but
Right.
my whole world this year has been right outside or beyond it. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, what's the deal? Like I'm kind of tired at this moment, but then I'm not tired enough to stop. And
Right. And that's where, I mean, sorry I interrupted you, Michelle.
no,
I
you're
apologize.
good.
But that one step, not 10 steps outside our comfort zone, that's stress.
Yeah.
We're going to live in that real place of constant stress, but that just pushing the envelope, and then sometimes life takes us where it's 10 steps outside and we need a break and we need to come back in and get all, take care and recoup. But that right outside our comfort zone where you're just a little bit nervous,
Yeah.
just a little. So, like I've started to lead retreats this year and I'm just a little bit nervous. I'm just a little bit nervous of calling all my friends to tell them because I don't want to appear fill in the blank. But that's okay. That's a good nervous.
Right.
It's over something that's good. It's like going to choose to cook a meal that's just a little bit outside of what you've ever done before.
Mhm.
You're not, it stretches us.
Yeah,
It's
you're not going to
exhilarating.
know. You're not going to know how to
Not
make
gonna
a
know.
sauce or a thing and then you're going to try it and you're probably going to mess it up.
Mess
And
it up.
at some point, it's going to be just okay. And you're going to be like, I'm so proud of myself for
I
doing
did
it.
it. And like
I,
you, when you got on stage, you
yeah.
know, yeah, you did
And,
it.
and I created a story that I ain't ever doing that again. And yet I was on
Mm,
stage 3 more times.
of course.
Then
Of
COVID
course.
hit. Then I
Uh-huh.
became like stage of doing video.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm podcasting. And you know what's kind of cool about this? Like I reflect on this every once in a while. I had a podcast a couple years ago. It
Uh-huh.
was called The Space Between, and I liked it very much.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as it was just on Facebook, like the
Mm-hmm.
idea of getting it out and really being seen, it's like this theme of
Mm-hmm.
what I have to say. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can just be what it is. And there are people who want to hear it, just like there are people who want to hear your
Ah.
story and everyone else's journey, because it reminds us that we're not that far different, right?
And I would bet money, and I'll speak for myself, but I think I'm not atypical. I'd rather hear the stories of the imperfection than the perfect. I am not at all attracted to the perfection. I want the messy middle. I want to hear people's, failures and flip-flops and then the good times.
Yeah.
That's what we really want is authenticity.
Well, it's relatable.
And
And
it's relatable.
one of the, in all transparency, like one of the biggest growth habits for me now recently, as I take myself to this next level, is like, what are the stories that I can share the growth from? Because like,
Mhm.
I just didn't want to look at them. I
Yeah.
got so good at shutting all like that's old news. This is new news.
Mhm.
But you need a piece of the old news so you can really highlight what else is
Absolutely.
possible, right?
Yeah.
So even as I like in my writing and different things I've been practicing on, I'll get it all out and I'm like, how do you tie it all together? And it's just not
Yeah.
hard. It's just let yourself feel the next piece of it.
Give us, and that's what that's what those really hard shit show years taught me. Cause those were when I was really on the stage a lot. And I would stand up and I would tell a story. And sometimes it would be slightly out of being therapeutic for myself, but also just really being divinely led to share a story of something hard that was in the, current in my life. And I would share it. And the line to talk to me after this thing was over was the long, they were just always this long line. I'll never forget speaking at a conference where my line was the longest to buy my book. And these were like Olympic speakers, swimmers, and I think, and has not about me, but my stories that were really that bumped right up against the stories of every other woman in that room of the really hard times. And I think that's how we build community. I think we want to build community. We want to see somebody who's done it and still around.
Yeah.
They wanted, I mean, and I would say, why I'm wearing this scarf today? Because my kid puked right here. See the puke? Look, there's the puke, but the scarf, and then I could turn that into something, but that was also real. And I had cried 10 minutes before because there was puke on my shirt,
Right.
but
But nobody sees that because they don't remember
no,
what you're wearing. They remember how you
mm-mm,
made them feel,
that's it.
And I think, thank you, because I was just thinking I could include that piece before I post it. But what I
Mm-hmm,
remember of that was, I had this book written, and when I was pouring my heart out, I was connected. And now I know words, like I was channeling sections, time would
mm-hmm,
just disappear. I didn't know that then. I would call it in the zone. And my husband
yeah,
would be like, "Are you okay? Are you coming home?" I'm like, "Dude, I just got here. What are you talking about?" He goes, "It's been 4 hours." And I'm like, "No, it's been 15 minutes."
yeah. And you were
Right?
just
And I was like, "What was that?" And then just push it aside because I didn't have any language around it.
right.
But as I look back, the speaking it was way different than writing it. Writing it's like a puzzle and it flows through me.
Mm-hmm,
And it was one level letting people see that and experience it,
mm-hmm,
but there's another part that ripped the Band-Aid off and is like, it's what it is. It's a story. People can connect, right?
right.
I always thought the steps or how I got through it or how we survived it or whatever the it is, right, was the more fascinating piece until that moment on stage. And, you know, God had a way of like flicking an earring out to the floor. And so my worst like thoughts of everything besides tripping was already going down. And I would make a joke. And I made a joke not only for them, but to talk about the realness. And it just settled me in. And then when I was done, I noticed a couple people leaving. I noticed people were crying. And I, for the moment, because I didn't know who I was then, I thought I did something wrong.
Ah,
I
yeah.
didn't
No,
realize that the room was captured
you
in
were
the
tapping into something. Yeah.
till I was at the back of the room. And then people are flooding over and sharing, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here and like just being in my own stuff. instead of
Right.
knowing that we can just be of service. So it was
Mhm.
all so new, learning what the word empath meant that weekend, like all these kind of really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
And I was so caught up in my own, like, what am I looking like? And what am I doing? And am I going to die? I'm going to fall over. I don't think I can do it. Blah, blah, blah. To having my earring flick off on stage and then just be who I was. I just
Yeah,
literally, like, I can't go back.
yeah, yeah.
It's just like, go forward and let it be what it is. And I'll never forget the women that I connected with that week.
Mhm,
You
mhm,
know,
so
and it
powerful.
shifted me. It helped me think I could do something different, and it
Mhm,
did change everything. I met my coach a week later. I got invited to go to
mm,
Texas and listen in another conference, and that
mhm.
first was like, "Oh, I can't take away from my kids and fly and go do this just for fun." And I went, "Oh, yes, I can."
Yes, I
I
can.
heard it. I
Yeah,
heard it. And
yeah.
that's where I met my mentor, and that's where I started certifying afterward. Like, it just was this whole fast and
Oh,
furious
mhm.
transformation, and I think
'Cause
it's
you
ex
said yes. You
yeah.
said yes. You said yes. I
And I
love that.
think the retreats and everything that you're doing in your podcast, which I'd love you to share a little bit about,
Mhm. Sure.
is the expression of that yes. And trust me, I mean, from my mouth to your ears, it doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be top
No.
1,000, and it doesn't have to do the things, but it gets to be part of the creation of you.
Absolutely. And I think there's something else I want to add to that. I'm feeling really strongly about it that even now, if as I get on stage, it doesn't mean I don't run through some of those things of what do I look like? Do these pants make me look fat? Oh my God, I've got wrinkles. I'm
That's
60 years
human.
old now. Right? We still do the same bullshit,
Yeah.
and but as you get older and you start to really realize what's really important, the more you can put that away, but I'm just saying I haven't yet mastered it. Well, I just nail the landing and don't have any of those human things. But when you can remember that people are craving authenticity. People really are craving hearing vulnerability, and seeing vulnerability modeled. And they also want to see strength. And those three things happens to be line up with what I can put out in the world.
Yeah.
I can speak from a both strong place and a vulnerable place. So that's part of my life's path to do that. Um, and that's going to show up in the listeners' lives in 100 different ways. But I don't think that we're ever not human. We're not women in our culture who've been conditioned to worry about how we look. I mean, I don't know there. I'm sure there are people who don't struggle with that every day, but I'd like to meet them,
I
you
did.
know.
I do. I have so much more acceptance now in a way I never thought I could ever have.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I like to feel good. I like to look good. I like to express. It's just another form of expression.
Absolutely. And if we see somebody walk out the room, it's absolutely a normal thing to go, "Oh my gosh, they left," and to make it about us. But when we remember, it's really not about us most of the time.
Well,
Yeah.
later she shared that like she was going through, like I was speaking about the loss of my parents, and it was really fresh for her.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
was so resonating, and she was loving that conversation so much she had to actually step out for a
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah. It makes total sense now
I
that you
was like,
understand.
that's not what I thought, right?
That's
It's just
not what I thought.
perfectly
Yeah.
human. And
I love it.
you know, it's like anything. You don't know when you make the live or when you go and do a podcast or you write the story, you have a conversation with somebody at a coffee shop or you smile on the street or it impacts people. You're always impacting people.
Always.
And if you're in
Always.
this world being a coach, an entrepreneur, someone with wanting to be of service and helping the world be a better place, don't take lightly that every action has an impact and that you can continue to create that multiplicity for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
May I add something to that as well,
I would
Michelle?
love
We
you.
talked about this before we started, but and so there's these moments that are really profound in our on our entrepreneurial journey, where the people are lined up to talk to us, or we feel like we're in flow or channeling. And then there's the other 90% of the time where you're in the middle. You're in the unsexy middle of figuring out some of the logistics. What am I, how do I post this? What is the technology for the Zoom call? That there's a lot of creating our businesses and our lives that is frankly unsexy. And I like to give an example like I want to go to Italy. So you save $300 a month to go to Italy. It's pretty unsexy to save $300 every month, but it sure as hell is sexy to buy the ticket and go. But
Yeah.
but our lives are made up of some pretty mundane, and I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying it's, it's like, every day you go to the gym and you take reps. There's a book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Have you read Atomic Habits, Michelle?
No, I bought that book and my daughter took it, read it, and gave it to three of her friends. So
Oh, okay.
it's coming back to my house and I'll get to it.
When you get to it, it's a really good one. It's a really good one. But basically, I believe it was the author who was talking to a man in the gym and saying something about how can you spot someone who's going to be a really good athlete? He said the person who's willing to be bored the most, because it's pretty boring a
Yeah.
lot of the time to do the things that add up to actually the things that we want.
Yeah. I
I think
love that
that's
there's, oh, go ahead. I'm so,
no.
I was just thinking there's two things that kind of come through that was like the compound effect of those
Yeah.
everyday habits, right?
Yeah.
It's literally a ripple effect. And
Mm-hmm.
we don't always see it. And if we're not willing to celebrate it ourselves, it's a lot
Mm-hmm.
harder on the harder days to remind ourselves how far we've come. So that element of celebrating all the wins, we hear
Yeah.
this, we hear it so much now, it can be like, I don't know what the words are in the moment, like nonchalant, right?
Yeah.
But when we do celebrate or we write down these wins or that we have learned technology and that is just something new skill to brush up on, or if we really look at those breadcrumbs, looking
Mm-hmm.
on where we are, we can see the completed cycles of transformation. And then we
Absolutely.
allow ourselves the experience of receiving more and letting it move again into something that it wants to birth into that we have no control over. I
Exactly.
think that's the journey. And that feeling as though everything that we want is already here now,
Mm-hmm.
like that can be very stifling for someone who's like, well, it's not in my hands.
I know. Yeah. It's very
But
hard to do that for some.
it's the ability to energetically be with the imagination and the vision that it's already done and that we're working our way to step into it, not waiting for it to fall in our lap. That
Mm-hmm.
starts to create such a difference. And so those everyday boring habits can be the pathway to instead of the thing
Absolutely.
from. Does that make sense?
Right. And so when you had asked me a couple of minutes ago about what keeps people from stepping into designing their life and business, is they don't really fully understand that right there. And that's that, we're programmed. Do you hear my dog barking?
Oh, very little, but we love
I'm
dogs.
so sorry. Okay.
Yeah,
For some
this
reason,
is
she just wants to
this
tell
is
the
life,
neighbors.
baby girl. This is
I
how it
know, live.
works.
Yeah. She's ever on the look for marauders who are here to do me evil. Bex. Anyway, so that idea that my wish for folks is to understand just exactly what you articulated, that you have to understand that we visualize it, feel into it, but then there are moments that you just go do the work.
You
you
got to
know
be in
you
action.
gotta be in action, and that it's not very sexy some days.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest things I work with my clients about. It's like, if you're looking for every day to be sexy and juicy and delicious and wonderful, I mean, every task you have to do, I don't mean every day, but every task you have to do in building your vision. I don't know about you, but emptying my dishwasher is not sexy, but
Nope.
I love having a clean kitchen.
Yeah. So we can turn
Yeah.
on some music and spray bottle away and have fun and
Yeah,
find the good in it. Like it's
absolutely.
just get it done. We can
Get
complain
it
about it
done.
for 15 minutes or we can have it done
Just
and
get it
we're
done.
done. Right? Like
Absolutely.
it's so good. Ugh, I feel like we can talk forever,
I
which
know. I know.
noted. Come back. And I want you to share a little bit more about your retreat. I'm
Oh,
excited. I love retreats and I think
uh-huh.
that you create such a beautiful space. Please share more
I
about all the things
will.
you have going on.
It's funny. I love the word retreat. But if you look at this, first of all, this retreat is designed for entrepreneurial women. And I want to give you just a tiny backstory. When I first started coaching, I coached entrepreneurial women for years and ran coaching groups. And I used to have this fantasy of what would it be like to rent a big house, fill it with entrepreneurial women, give everybody a flip chart, and we just sit around with markers and post-it notes, and everybody, cross pollinates. But really, it's more like toddlers who are playing house. Everybody's sort of playing by themselves, but in community. So I did that last year for the first time. I rented a house in North Carolina and filled it with women, and took them through my process. I do actually have a process, what I call the purposeful business formula, but taking people through that for a whole week, and then popping in elements, spiritual elements, fire circles, facial mask, delicious food, oracle cards, but also nitty gritty, bottom line stuff around your business. And so I'm doing that again in Oregon. I'm doing that up in a government camp outside Portland, Oregon, the last week of September, first week of October. Going to fill that house with 8 to 10 business women who are ready to do just what I described. And this is really for women who, for solopreneur women, particularly who value community, who also know that sometimes our best ideas can't come in this space we sit in every day. We're sitting here every day in our own office, and to shake things up. And then I'm going to be the guide on the side. I don't have all the answers, but I'm sort of a midwife with a structure and provide some structure. Then it's followed up with 3 months of coaching. So you really get to know these women real intimately. And then we stay together for 3.5 months after the retreat is over. And my first one was off the charts amazing. I'm just going to say that was off the charts amazing. It exceeded my expectations, which were pretty high. So I'm doing it again. You can find out about it on my website. You click on Women in Business if you go to cherihoneycutt.com. And what I'd love is to talk to anybody about it personally and see if it, cranks your cranker. It's a
Yes, and I can speak to the experience of attending retreat. I mean, we met at a retreat. I
we
mean,
did. I know we're retreaties.
I think we learned a lot and transformed a lot, but what I take away is our friendship and like coffee in the morning,
Coffee. Yeah.
long talks at night. Like you
Yeah.
can't, it's priceless,
It
right?
is.
And that we're like, oh, I'm doing this too. I'm working on this. This is where I'm going. Here's what I need for that next step. Like it's just a natural progression. And it's what happens when we bring women together. And
It is. And what I was going to say at the very beginning, and then I distracted myself, is that idea of retreat is to pull back. But if you take it from a military term, you pull back and then you make an advance. You retreat and then you advance. And that's really what I'm always looking for when I retreat, is to come back into myself, come back in, get centered. But ultimately I'm doing that so that my life can continue to move forward in the direction that I most want it to go. So it's sort of a retreat advance dance.
yes, and
That's how I see it.
that's that's movement forward, which I think is,
Mm-hmm.
well, we're going to make sure we have all the links in the show
Thank
notes.
you.
And if you are a woman listening in and looking for a retreat, I mean, Oregon in September, you can't go wrong with. It's
Mm-hmm.
gorgeous, beautiful weather, beautiful scenery, plus all the growth for your business and personal
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Oh, I got chill bumps.
Right? I'm like, and I
I
was just thinking
did.
the whole conversation, I'm like, this is you after having gone through and not talking yourself out of it. So now I just want more and I want to do it this way. And so this is
Mm-hmm.
magic that comes from
Mm-hmm.
all the previous conversations that we had in this
Yeah.
beautiful episode.
Yes,
So
please.
leave us with, if you will, your definition of purpose, presence, and prosperity, or your
Mm.
experience with it. I love asking all of my guests, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
process behind why this podcast is named what it is. But I love to hear your input on that.
Okay. Well, purpose is part of my business name, Designing Your Life and Business on Purpose. And I'm not of the belief that all of us have a single purpose, but I do believe that humanity's opportunity is to show up with purpose, like to do life on purpose rather than by default. And so when I hear the word purpose, I think about, I'm not just going on the factory settings. I'm going to determine how do I want to program my life and live that on purpose. And presence for me is the idea of something that I think eludes most humans, is that moment where we're not looking forward or lamenting the past, that we take that opportunity to really notice. And I don't live in this space as much as I want to, but to notice the beautiful green leaves as the sun is going through them right now outside my window, and the new cologne, the new perfume that I bought as I'm trying to decide if I like it or not, to notice that smell and to notice your lovely smile on the screen, that means to be in the moment. And I think when we do that, Well, we regulate our central nervous system. We're not so worried about the future, and we're not, beating ourselves up for the past. And then prosperity, that one has changed for me over time, and I'm so thankful for it. Clearly, there's monetary prosperity, which I have worked hard to say, hell yeah, bring it. I'm all about that, and I've got no problem at all saying I'm all for financial prosperity. But prosperity for me is an abundance to be determined by whoever the person is. But for me, it's a full pantry. It's a calendar that has delicious things on it and a balance of things from friends to work to obligations that I'm taking care of because I'm being a responsible adult. But prosperity is in living in the land of plenty for me. Um I guess each individual person gets to decide what's their currency.
Oh,
Mine is friends and money and laughter.
yeah. I love
Yeah.
it's so beautiful. And ultimately it's creative expression.
Yeah.
It's
You're
being more
right.
of you. It's
Mm-hmm.
being more unapologetic in what you want.
Mm.
It's being able to claim your divinity
Mm-hmm.
and the expansiveness that comes from literally being in this present moment for all of the reasons that we get to experience, touch, taste, feel, sense, all the things in this lifetime that when
Yeah.
the soul returning beyond this body, we don't get to experience.
Yeah.
It gets to be as delicious as we decide we want to make it, and as simple,
Absolutely.
simply already here and gets to
Mm-hmm.
be expanded upon more, which I love. Thank you for that beautiful experience of
Yeah. I love this.
oh, well, thank you so much. What a beautiful episode. I love sharing you with the community. You guys definitely reach out to Cheri,
Mm.
learn more, not only about her retreats, but her amazing work in the world. And just thank you so much for being such a bright light and joining me here today.
Michelle, feel equally as drawn to you, and so thankful for this opportunity. I love you, friend.
I love you too. Bye for now, guys.
Bye.